Federalism, big grammar, right? But let's make it simple. I want you to imagine your house as one big kitchen, but you have three grown up children who would always all want to cook their own food, so which means that the burden is not on the mother to actually prepare the food or maybe their dad as well. But then there's a very clear rule. Everyone should have their own stove or gas cooker, have your ingredients, but then you all have to still stay and what's it called? We share the same roof. We stay under the same roof. That's I think the simplest way I could try to describe federalism. Power shared between a central government and smaller governments. The case of Nigeria, between the federal government and the states. In theory, each one should be free. Like each of those kids should be free to cook their own meal of development. That's what they feed on to grow. But in Nigeria, it's like one person is holding all the keys to the kitchen. When you get a new lock and you have lots of keys. So you have all of the keys and then you have others waiting outside. They're hungry, but then they gotta wait because they gotta wait. You're the one with the keys. Sad. Anyways, my name is Ajibola Oladiipo and this is the Diary of a Patriot, where we make politics make sense. So the idea behind federalism is beautiful. I love it so much. It says that diversity it's not a problem, it's a strength. It mirrors it as a strength. It's Federalism is saying that let Lagos experiment with new business ideas, let them do whatever they want to do. Let Kano grow its industries. The pyramids. Let's have the pyramids again. Enugu can protect its culture if it wants to, and rivers can manage its oil. That's federalism. And political scientists would call that a shared rule and self rule, in the sense that you share what binds you together. What binds us together as a nation? Our currency, defense, aerial defense, foreign policies. They bind us together. So we share that, but then whatsoever is local to you, you manage it. Like your schools, your markets, your environment, healthcare. And I think it's what makes countries like the United States and India thrive. How so? Their states have the freedom to tax, to innovate, and even compete. And in economics, in the old subject of economics, it's called competitive federalism, where each state tries to outdo the other in trying to attract businesses, in attracting investors, in improving welfare. You know, you would even probably see people say, oh, you want to register your business in the US. There are some specific states they mention that you should consider. Why? Because of how what's it called? How inviting and how appealing the states looks. So it's a partnership. Federalism is actually a partnership. It's not that a big brother dictates this is how you do things. It's supposed to bring out the best out of everyone. Yes, we share one flag. We're under the same flag, under the same country, and it brings the best out of us. But in Nigeria, I think our version of federalism is quite different. I think it's a little bit complicated in the sense that it's just complicated. We call ourselves the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but in reality, we really, really need to define some of these things, because what makes us the Federal Republic of Nigeria? What are the federating units? How does the federating unit derives its power and all of these things? And here's why I'm saying this. Abuja controls almost everything. Maybe not almost everything, but like a whole lot of things. The police, the army. I can understand why Abuja controls the army, the airports, and even the minerals in your backyard. Yes, and most states, Now, in as much as it's good, the sad thing is that most states now have to depend and line up every month to collect money from FAC. FAC is FAAC, the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee, and it's an imbalance. It's a vertical fiscal imbalance that I don't think should be. In as much as yes, we should share or share proceeds or whatever binds us together, but it shouldn't be what we're dependent on. And if one level of government holds most of the money and power while the others depend on it, there's a problem. So when people say our states are not developing, the question is, what exactly do they have? Why are they not developing? These are critical questions that we should ask. When the rules don't even allow them to manage their own resources freely, how can they expressly develop at their own pace? I think resource control is something that should be part of federalism, and I think that's something that we should give to states. And I'll use oil as an example. Today, Ondo State is an oil producing. Is it? So if we find substantial amounts or deposits of oil today in Ondo State, that oil does not belong to Ondo. Or if we find oil in Ekiti, for instance, it does not belong to Ekiti. It belongs to the federal government of Nigeria. And what the state will get is only 13% as compensation through what in Nigeria we call the derivation principle. Yeah, that's part of the formula that was agreed. So 13% of all of that proceeds belongs to you. Now compare an Ondo or Ekiti in this case to the US. Texas, for instance. Texas controls its oil, it manages its taxes, and it only pays what's due to Washington. And that's why I think Texas can stand that tall economically. In Nigeria, our oil producing states, we can go to Goniland, you'd see the pollution they face, the broken infrastructure, and yes, while others, we are benefiting from their resources. While we're benefiting from their resources, they live in those kind of conditions. I know some scholars call our system the rentier federalism, where a few people at the top are collecting rent from national resources. While what do others do? They just wait for allocations. And if there's anything that unsettles me, it's how that our state governors now have to wait for allocations every month. Like, how many states can even survive? It's disheartening. Personally, I think it's disheartening. Our leaders should fight to grow our commonwealth. That's what they should do, not to share rent. We need to put on our thinking caps. We really need to do better than we currently are, and compete in an healthy way. And like I say, federalism is not some big theory. It touches our lives, in our daily lives, and that's why it's sort of important that we understand it. If your state, for instance, could control its own revenue, maybe the federal road that passes through your state, or some of those roads might not depend on the minister's signature in Abuja, or even, yes, they don't have to wait for Abuja. Your local hospitals might have steady funding, and maybe teachers will be paid on time. There wouldn't be issues of states owing. I'm super excited that we've even stopped hearing of states owing salaries. I'm super excited. But the sad thing is that if not more than 30 of Nigerians 36 states cannot survive without money from the federal purse, and that's why it's troubling me. It's like one parent having 36 children, and 30 are still depending on him. The truth is, when everybody is depending on one center, it's going to stifle innovation. Centralization kills that innate desire to take initiatives. It just makes everyone docile and wait instead of taking initiatives to act. And I think that's one of the reasons why citizens feel powerless, even though federalism in itself was meant to empower them. And the promise of federalism itself promises freedom. It promises responsibility. It gives room for creativity and innovation. But from what we can see over the years, I think we have lots of issues with dependence, frustration, and you know how we are all pointing fingers at one another. Really, we can't keep doing that, and we must fix that contradiction. We must allow states to truly breathe. We can keep pretending like, oh, we can keep pretending that, oh, we're a federal republic, but in actual sense, are we sure that what we're practicing is not unitary? Are we sure it's not unitary state? These are questions that we must ask. And when I'm saying this is not just pointing fingers to federal government alone, because even the governors are complicit. They complain about Abuja, they complain about the federal government, but go to their respective states and you'd see that they're like mini Abujas to their local governments, where everything is to the center. So it must go both ways. It must go both ways. Power must flow from the people upward. It's not from the center down. No. It should flow from people upward, because a federating unit actually draws its powers from the states, and the state in itself is from the people. It's not just about federal government. It's about you that you're listening to me. It's about each and every one of us. It's about our community having the power to decide its own future. If our communities cannot decide their own future, then what's the point? So that's one of the reasons why, yes, resource control, I'm so much for that. Again, my name is Ajibola Oladiipo, and you just experienced and listened to me, documenting and filling my diary of a patriot today. And if this episode made you think differently, please share it. If you share contrary opinion, please feel free to let me know. Start a conversation, and remember that building Nigeria is not just about noise from the top, but we also being able to tweak ideas from wherever we are. We must stay engaged. We must not lose hope. Yes, we should stay hopeful, and more importantly, if you're listening to Diary of a Patriot, you should stay patriotic. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.